Rockstars, I'm Anna Vanston, and it's time to celebrate because Disney's live-action The Little Mermaid is here! Okay, across this, my interview with Awkwafina and Jacob Tremblay, and my 10 fun facts about the original Little Mermaid, I might be completely out of fish puns. And that's not just me being coy. Anyway, this movie masterfully toes the line of being extremely faithful to the original and making some big changes that enhance the story. And of course, there are a bunch of hidden details and Easter eggs that we're going to shed some light on, so let's stop clown fishing around and dive into it. The movie opens with some incredible footage of the raw power of the ocean, with a quote from the original story of The Little Mermaid by Hans Christian Andersen, reading, "But a mermaid has no tears and therefore she suffers so much more." Just your typical happy Disney intro. But director Rob Marshall said that going back to the source material of the Hans Christian Andersen version was one of the first things they did when deciding how they wanted to approach a remake. And he loved that the heart of the story was a girl who wanted to break down the wall between her world and the surface world. And one huge theme of this movie is how detrimental it is for people to put up barriers between each other out of fear or misunderstanding. We see time and time again throughout the movie that both Ariel and Eric are always striving to tear down those walls and connect to the other side. And it adds an element of relevance to today's day and age where it feels like people are more divided than ever. And we see this theme almost immediately touched on as a dolphin courses through the waters just like the beginning of the animated movie, only for the beautiful moment to be abruptly cut off by a harpoon being fired at it because the sailors aboard the ship think it's a mermaid. Seeing this, Eric, played by Jonah Hauer-King, leaps down from his work on the sails to stop them. They warn him that it's the annual coral moon that night, when the Sea King calls his daughters together to lure men to their deaths using their siren song, and Eric writes us off saying it's just old lore, already showing that he doesn't hold the same fears and beliefs that others do. This scene ends with Eric accidentally dropping his spyglass into the ocean as the camera dips below the surface and we transition into Ariel's world. Once again, we get some of the same beats as the animated movie as we see blooming anemone fish. Did I say that right? Anemone? Anemone. I'm saying it right. We see blooming anemone, fish, and mermaids swimming through the waters before arriving at Triton's palace, where they've opted for a bit more of a realistic coral structure that still glistens a bit with the sunlight. Instead of gathering for a royal concert, though, the sailor aboard the ship was half right, as Triton and his daughters are gathering for the coral moon. But in reality, this is to swap news from the various seas that the daughters preside over. Triton appears out of thin water with iridescent armor made of abalone shells and a cape consisting of, I believe, Peruvian anchoveta fish, which can school together to form shapes in a really wild way. We'll cruise past thinking about the life quality of spending your existence as a cave, though. He also blows into a conch shell, much like he does in Greek mythology. While in the animated film, it seems like all of Ariel's sisters lived under one roof and had names beginning and ending with A, this movie gives them more independent personalities, with all of them ruling over their own seas and having unique names with meanings behind them, while all still ending in A to give them that familial tie. I also love how their designs seem to be unique to the regions they hail from, and I believe their tales are based on real fish as well. In the Little Mermaid Guide to Merfolk book, we get a ton more information about the sisters and the lands they preside over. I'll give you the long and short of it and list what the meanings of their names are and what fish I believe their fins might be styled after. Also, my apologies if my pronunciation for any of these seas is off, but I'm just taking my best shot at it since they're all fictional seas, with the one real sea that is mentioned in this movie being during the song Poor Unfortunate Souls, when Ursula calls upon the winds of the Caspian Sea, which lies on the border of Eastern Europe and Central Asia. Anyway, there's Mala, ruler of the Chain Sea, Corinna, ruler of the Safe Sea, Indira, ruler of the Brine-Dive Sea, Perla, ruler of the Python Sea, Tamika, ruler of the Fracas Sea, Caspia, ruler of the Apneic Sea, and Ariel, meaning Lion of God, which feels a little OP, who rules over the Carinais Sea. We then see the Little Mermaid herself as Ariel, played by the amazing Halle Bailey, and Flounder, voiced by Jacob Tremblay, head to a sunken ship graveyard to explore. Ariel's tail has gotten a major upgrade in this movie, as its range of colors and shimmery quality provides an iridescence that's almost like fairy wings flitting through the water. As for Flounder, in the original animated movie, despite his name suggesting such, he is not a flounder, but actually designed just to look like a general tropical fish, perhaps leaning most closely to a royal angelfish. In this movie, however, he appears to be a sergeant major fish, with the same cute little cowlick in his fin that he had in the animated version. As they explore the ship, she finds a fork, much like in the movie, but first refers to it as a tiny trident, which is how I will be referring to all forks from now on. When she brings it to Scuttle, voiced by Awkwafina, she kindly informs her it's a dinglehopper. In the animated movie, Scuttle's a seagull, but in this one, she's a northern gannet, which plunge 62 miles per hour into the water when hunting and stay underwater for about 30 to 45 seconds. So in reality, this conversation would have had to go a lot quicker. Ariel is also about to ask about what true fans know as a snarfblat before she gets interrupted and has to leave. As she swims off, we get the same intro for Flotsam and Jetsam as in the original movie, where their glowing eyes combine to transition into Ursula's lair. In this movie, Ursula, played by Melissa McCarthy, is Triton's younger sister and Ariel's aunt, which was actually the original original plan for the animated movie before it was eventually scrapped, but was made canon for the Broadway musical. She doesn't go into a ton of gritty detail, but we learn that she's the family pariah, banished to exile for 15 years. Ursula's design has elements of bioluminescence seen in her tentacles and collar. Bioluminescence is found in organisms that live in depths where light can't reach, which makes sense as to why Ariel has to swim so far down to get to Ursula's lair. It also has a function in deep-sea predators like anglerfish to lure unsuspecting victims. Appropriate. But soon after, we get to see the majesty of Ariel's grotto. And one of the first things I noticed was she upgraded from a candelabra to a friggin' chandelier. Nice, girl. One cool touch is that when she's looking at a book asking what a fire is, the picture she's looking at, Astronomer by Candlelight, has an hourglass in the bottom left corner, echoing the hourglass in the bottom left-hand corner of the frame in the shot before. This could also potentially be a callback to the original movie where Sebastian hits an hourglass on his way into Ariel's grotto. One definite callback, though, is the iconic shot of Ariel reaching towards the surface, which you just know they had to include in the remake. Right after this song, Ariel sees the colorful flashes from the fireworks and swims to the surface to investigate. Right before she breaches the surface, she hits iconic pose number 2 from the original movie's official poster. She finds Eric's ship where they're partying it up, singing part of the song Fathoms Below, the opening song in the animated movie and one of the first songs in the Broadway show as well. The first thing Ariel sees is them dancing with the help of their, what do you call them? Feet. It's only after this that she sees Eric for the first time. And while in the original movie she pretty much falls at first sight just seeing his face, TBH, I got it. In this version, her first impression of him is overhearing a conversation between him and Grimsby, where Eric refuses to take his father's place, trapped inside the castle walls and cut off from the outside world. In this conversation, we learn that Eric wasn't born into royalty, but rather taken in by the king and queen as a baby when he was found washed up on shore after a shipwreck. This is why he feels a connection to the sea and wants to venture out and connect with the world. As he puts it, it's in his blood, and he says that while he can't quite explain it, something out there is calling to him. It's this that draws Ariel to Eric, knowing what it's like to feel trapped by duty and wanting more. And I think that's a much stronger motivation for her being drawn to him than just him being good looking. Though he is. And they have a lot of things in common in this movie. A monarch parent who wants to keep them home to protect them, a grotto that holds all their collections. I mean, Eric's even has a skylight just like Ariel's. She also sees his kindness and willingness to sacrifice himself when the ship crashes and he stays aboard the burning ship to save Max. And they've added a cute detail of Ariel underwater helping Max to swim to the lifeboat, which is likely why he immediately takes to her when he sees her again as a human. Once she saves Eric, we're treated to iconic shots 3 and 4 as Eric starts to come to, seeing her silhouetted face, and the waves bursting up around her for the reprise of Part of Your World. And same as in the animated version, her sitting on that rock is a nod to the Little Mermaid statue in Copenhagen. Sebastian, played by Daveed Diggs, who has worked with lyricist Lin-Manuel Miranda on several prior projects, most notably Hamilton, then treats us to his rendition of Under the Sea, a colorful feast for the eyes where you can see real species of fish like feather stars, flatworms, and my personal favorite, tortoiseshell limpets. We then see Eric's castle, and I put in some work trying to place where we were located in this movie. In the original Little Mermaid, Eric's castle was styled after the real-world Chateau de Chalon in Switzerland. And while they filmed this movie in Italy, that's almost certainly not where it's meant to take place. While the seas that Triton's daughters rule over are fictional, the places that Eric lists in the movie aren't, so let's see what we can figure out. When looking at maps with Ariel, he points out the Brazilian Empire, which comprised of Brazil and Uruguay in that time, Venezuela, Colombia, and the Mosquito Coast before talking about his land. He also found his mermaid statuette on the coast of Cartagena, so we're likely looking somewhere in the Caribbean, and the music of the village, which features the steel drums heavily, backs this up. He also says there's a rainforest and lagoon nearby, which narrows it down to possibly somewhere like Jamaica, Puerto Rico, or St. Lucia. But at the beginning of the movie, he says that there's a Spanish galleon headed to the mainland to trade, meaning that his island wasn't owned by Spain. Looking at a map of which countries presided over which islands at the time, that leaves our safest bet as Jamaica, which was under British rule at the time, which is likely why there are also some British accents heard on the island. The Queen, played by Noma Dumezweni, serves as a foil to Triton, forbidding Eric to go on any more voyages because she believes the sea gods are against them and eroding their land into the ocean. But Eric just can't escape the sea. I mean, literally, they have a friggin' tile mural of it right there in the dining room. But this leads him to sing the new song Wild Uncharted Waters, which has Ariel's siren song motif woven throughout it. We hear the song in the background of several more moments, including as he runs up the staircase to confess his love to Ariel, and when they're about to depart together at the end of the the movie. But while the Queen is talking smack about the sea gods, Triton and Ariel's sisters are talking smack about the humans as they clean the remains of the shipwreck from off of a now damaged coral reef. And a misunderstanding about Ariel's mood eventually leads to Triton finding out about Eric and discovering her grotto. It's here that we find out that Ariel's mother, who was also taken with the human world, was killed by a human, leading to Triton forbidding trips to the surface. One difference I like about this scene is that although the line "Daddy, I love him" in the original movie is iconically dramatic, in this one she just tries to vouch for Eric by calling him compassionate and kind, which is a little more down to earth than immediately declaring love. When Triton destroys her statue of Eric, she holds the detached hand of the statue, recreating their moment on the beach when he grabbed her hand. In this moment of weakness, Ursula appears to Ariel through a magic bubble that eels make, like Glinda in The Wizard of Oz. Witches love bubbles. Ursula's garden is so much more horrific than in the original and even tries to choke Ariel. And Ursula's hangout spot is a giant clam instead of a conch, using the black pearl as her crystal ball. Ursula tries to relate to Ariel by saying that Triton controls everything she sees and does too, and even has a moment that echoes Ariel's in Poor Unfortunate Souls when she swims up to the light. A few changes in this portion are that they remove the verse about it being preferred on land for ladies not to talk, the spell requires Ariel's scale and blood, and an added caveat that no matter how hard she tries, she won't remember that she needs to get a kiss. As Ariel surfaces with her human legs, we get iconic shot number 5, the hair flip, which Bailey said in an interview took about 20 takes and her neck was over it. I feel you, girl. But now the girl's got legs and we got another new song called For the First Time, which starts with a physical gravity weighing Ariel down and ends with an emotional gravity weighing her down. During this, she also discovers what a fire is and why and what's the word burns, and gets a dress that is a seafoamy color like her dress in the Disney parks. Costume designer Colleen Atwood said that she made it a point for the people in the village who live by the ocean to have a more vibrant color palette in their costumes, and for the people in the castle to have more bleached out colors to their garments. We also get another one of my favorite lines when Scuttle comes in and fully optimistic asks Sebastian, "Has Ariel killed the prince yet?" Kind of unquestioning support is what I look for in a friend. When Ariel finds Eric's trinket room while exploring the castle, she picks up his mermaid statuette, and for the first time we get something close to a titular line as he says, "My Little Mermaid," causing Anna to go, "Aww." Ariel also smashes a geode Eric's been holding onto, revealing a crystal, showing that sometimes you have to look on the inside to find the gem. As they're out on the town, Jodie Benson, the voice of Ariel in the animated film, makes a cameo as a market vendor, offering Ariel a dingle hopper while saying, "I think you'll need this." It's so cute! They transition to the rowboat scene by Scuttle stealing Eric's hat, so they chase her to where the rowboat is. And to set the mood, instead of singing a portion of Tchaikovsky's Romeo and Juliet, which Scuttle sings in the original film, she opts for more modern bow chicka bow wow. They very cleverly rewrite how Eric is able to guess Ariel's name by having Ariel point to the Aries constellation to get Eric to say it, and then she moves his lip to get him to say an L sound. Honestly, it makes more sense than pulling the name Ariel out of thin air. I'll take it. But Ursula knows this spells trouble and opts to turn herself into a human using a lung-shaped potion to do so. Meanwhile, torn between continuing the search for the voice he's looking for and pursuing Ariel, Eric runs the sand from the spot on the beach where he was saved through his hand while contemplating. When he finally decides to tell Ariel his feelings, he follows the symbolic and literal light towards the palace, only to hear Vanessa, Ursula's human form, singing the siren song. When he finds her, there's a glow in his eyes that matches the Nautilus shell necklace's glow, just like in the animated version, showing he has been bewitched. We're then treated to one of my personal favorite new songs, Scuttlebutt, which plays on Scuttle's trait of rambling and getting off track with ranty lyrics that sometimes spill over the musical bar. At the suggestion that Eric might be proposing that day, Ariel runs out to find him with Vanessa, who wears a purple gown and has black nail polish to fit Ursula's color scheme. Ariel runs off and laments on the same rock that she sang the Part of Your World reprise, this time singing, "What did I give to live where you are?" Heartbreaking. Scuttle alerts her of what Ursula has done, however, and she makes her way back to the castle, where Eric is introducing Vanessa to the court. The queen, donning a hair accessory that resembles coral, gives Eric her mother's ring, which looks to be a blue topaz. Blue topaz often represents clarity, communication, and it's said that those who wear the gemstone should embrace their authentic selves. Hint, hint, Eric. Ariel makes it to the castle and reveals Ursula, but not before the sun goes down and it's too late. As King Triton sacrifices his trident and crown to save Ariel, Ursula gets the recognizable crown from the animated movie, which in this is made from shark's teeth. An epic battle begins with Ariel and Eric coming out on top, but are still separated as Ariel's back in her mermaid form, the barrier between their worlds reestablished. But Sebastian finally stands up to the king, arguing that he hasn't done everything in his power to make her happy, and Triton decides to change her into a human and let her live the life she wants. Reunited, Eric and Ariel decide to set sail and explore uncharted waters. Ariel now in a white dress with pink accents that pays homage to both her wedding dress and pink dress in the original film. The Queen says that their marriage marks a new beginning for them, perhaps a nod to the movie Ariel's beginning, and Ariel and Eric set off, but not before Ariel thanks her father for hearing her, to which he responds, "You shouldn't have had to give up your voice to be heard." Seeing the merfolk and humans united, Ariel sheds a tear of joy, harkening back to the quote from the beginning of the movie. The film comes to a close the same way the animated one does, with the two worlds united to send Ariel and Eric off, with the part of your world motif playing in the background as they sail off into the sunset. Beautiful! And now all that's left is to see if there's a sequel waiting in the wings. And also, if you haven't, be sure to check out my interview with Awkwafina and Jacob. It was a great time and they had some really fun info to share. Until then, you can follow me on Twitter at @It'sAnnaVanston and follow and subscribe to New Rockstars @NewRockstars for more breakdowns of everything you love. See you later!